the Baen Free Radio Hour.
On the podcast, the Baen Roadshow takes to space, virtual space now, the solar system, and beyond the infinite tomorrow. Plus, we continue with the complete audiobook serialization of David Weber's Uncompromising Honor. All right now. Welcome to the Baen Free Radio Hour podcast. It's an honor to have you along. I'm Baen Senior Editor Tony Daniel. This time we talk with Baen Publisher and my boss, Toni Weisskopf. Toni discusses the national hunkering down moment. She talks about how it affects books, readers, publishing as a business, and science fiction fandom. Toni also provides insight into what Baen Books is doing to better serve our readers now and in general. She's also art director here at Baen, and she talks about the selection of the great art for the covers. We also talk a bit about a new anthology that's coming up called Give Me Libertycon. Toni edited this with Christopher Woods, and it's full of great Baen author stories, all in honor of this man named Timothy Bolgeo, who was a wonderful, well-beloved fan and fan writer. He's passed away, whom everyone adored and who was always found at LibertyCon in Chattanooga, which is a convention a lot of Baen writers attend. So Toni talks about that anthology as well. The interview is a great overview of what's going on at Baen with authors and their books. And if you are a reader of Baen Books, which you are, you'll really want to hear this. Plus, we continue the complete audiobook serialization of David Weber's Honor Harrington series masterpiece, Uncompromising Honor. Now here's the news. We mentioned before the virtual Baen Roadshow that we've been doing and will be doing. Toni talks about it a lot more in a moment, but these are virtual versions of what we do at conventions, which is present new and upcoming books. And we do this by showing the art that goes into the covers. Always cool to see the naked art there. Naked art. And then the cover. And when an author is at the convention, we ask him or her to talk about their books. And they give some really interesting insight into their works at those times. We also give out free swag, and here's a tip, free books, especially to those who provide wise and witty questions or comments from the audience. And now, at the Baen Virtual Roadshow, we have all the authors, a lot of them anyway. It's a big video call conference with lots of authors in the Baen lineup there talking about their books and taking questions from readers. So how do you watch and listen to this thing? These virtual roadshows are available live at the Baen Facebook page and also will be available on the Baen YouTube channel. They go out live as a Facebook event that you can watch and participate in. You don't have to have a Facebook account to watch, by the way. You can just go to the Baen Facebook page and find it there. A link to that, the Baen Facebook page, can be found on the Baen.com homepage at Baen.com. The link to the Baen Facebook page is right over there on the left-hand column. You'll see it right there. And we also record these things so you can watch one that's already happened. When is the next virtual roadshow taking place? Well, if you are listening to this on the day it is posted, the next roadshow is tomorrow, April 18th, 2020 at 4 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. I will not embarrass myself by attempting to do the math for wherever you are. Even if you are in Eastern Time, I might mess it up. Can you subtract by 0? Or does that equal infinity? I forget. Anyway, check it out. Saturday afternoon, evening, or Sunday morning, wherever you are, at 4 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Join in the discussion, and it will be perpetually available to catch up on if you can't join in then. The Baen Virtual Roadshow is coming at you with good stuff. And don't forget our new program of author readings on Friday nights either. That can be found streaming on the Facebook page as well. We'll talk more about that in a moment. It's kind of fun to see some of the authors, too, and their pets, which sometimes are cavorting in the background there during the roadshow calls. The Baen Virtual Roadshow is coming at you with good stuff. We're with you. We have the books and authors you love. So check out the roadshow for more. Want to welcome Toni Weisskopf to the podcast. Hey, Toni.
Hey, Tony D. How's it going?
Pretty good, considering. Toni Weisskopf is the publisher of Baen Books. She also wears many other hats at Baen, including editor of books and art director. She's also an editor of anthologies, including an upcoming anthology that will be out in, I think it's July, from Baen. And maybe we'll want to talk about that at some point. We certainly will on the podcast. That book is Give Me Libertycon, which she edited with Christopher Woods, right? That's his name, is the co-editor.
Mm-hmm.
Toni is also highly active in science fiction fandom and has been for decades, and has won some awards for that side of her activities as well. So the main reason you wanted to come on is to provide maybe an update or overview of what's going on at Baen during this big moment of sort of national hunkering down and what's going on with books in general, maybe.
Okay. Well, I'll be happy to talk about that. I like the phrase "hunkering down." I used to live in Athens, Georgia, and hunker down was one of the things that the Georgia Bulldogs did on a regular basis. So I like that much better than national panic or other crisis-oriented words. So we're definitely living in the interesting times, and we're seeing some changes at Baen. I like to think they are positive ones, and that we're getting to do some things that we've wanted to do for a while, and we now have the chance to do and the audience to do it for. So one of those things is to do a recording of the Baen Traveling Roadshow. This is it started out as a slideshow back, I believe, in 1990. The earliest that I know that I did it was the Worldcon in The Hague in 1991, and I'd been doing it for at least a year before then. So, so probably call it 1990. So it's something we've been doing for 30 years now. Oh my God. And has been available only at conventions. You had to go to a convention in order to see the slideshow. And what we do at the slideshow is we show a picture, the cover art. We commission all of our cover art as original art from science fiction artists, and so we like the chance to be able to appreciate the art as art, because it is fantastic, beautiful, wonderful art. The visuals that we have for our books, I'm just so pleased to work with the absolute best in the field. So we get a chance to show the art off as art, and then we also show the book covers. And I have to say, we also work with the best in the field for our cover designers, Carol Russo and Jenny Ferries. So we get to show off their work as well, and we get to talk about the books, and we take questions from the audience. And from the very beginning, these things have been fairly raucous affairs, because Baen readers are Baen readers, and we've turned the lights down, and you never know what happens when you turn down the lights on a bunch of Baen readers. So I'm kidding here, but
I don't think you are.
Well, we always have a good time at the Baen slideshow. So we call it the Baen Roadshow now, because it has evolved into a PowerPoint presentation. We try to keep it as simple as possible, still adhering to original principles of show off the beautiful art and look at the beautiful covers and talk about the books. And we've gradually rolled in other people. I'm not the only one who gives the road show anymore. Tony Daniel gives the road show. Mark Van Name and Jenny Ferries give the road show at Balticon every year. Jim Minns, another editor at Baen, has given the road show. Hank Davis has given the road show. Greg Reinhardt has given the road show. So we've had we get a lot of input on it, and of course we also like to involve the authors and any artists who are at conventions.
That's so much fun to have them come up and and talk about their stuff.
It really, really is, and depending on who is at a convention is who you get at the roadshow. So sometimes it's just me talking my head off, and other times I can hardly get a word in edgewise. Say DragonCon when we have a lot of authors at a convention, and David Weber and Eric Flint and Larry Correa and John Ringo and Misty Lackey and all of our authors have at one time or another, if they've gone to a convention that's had a roadshow, they've been involved with the presentation. And we've tried to figure out how we can get that roadshow experience when we don't have a convention. And one of our editors, Christopher Rocchio, has come up with a plan so that we can do that pretty much. We had the first roadshow last Saturday at 4:00, just where it would be if you were at a convention that weekend. And we got a bunch of authors in and a lot of commentary. We had over 1,000 comments on Facebook while we were giving the presentation live. Just absolutely fantastic. So we got that element of interaction with the audience that is integral to the presentation. I was really, really pleased to get that. There were great questions for the authors and appreciation of the artwork. And just as at a Baen slideshow at a convention, there were people from the audience who were answering other people's questions. So I didn't have to answer all the questions because our fans are so knowledgeable about our authors and about our books and about how we do things. They're able to answer the questions that the other readers have, and that's part of the Baen experience. And it's just great to be able to share that with the online audience that we all are now in the Great Hunkering Down.
We also give out some free stuff, even in the virtual version, right? We did.
We did. We absolutely did. At the Baen Roadshow, if you were going to a convention, we would throw you some beads, or we'd give you some bookmarks, or some other form of swag. But we also hand out free books, and we were able to do that in this iteration of the Roadshow too. So the free books were free ebooks or free e-arcs. I didn't actually get to take a physical book and throw it out into the audience like I often do, but it's probably a little bit safer the way that you do it in the virtual show. But yeah, we were able to give out free books. Christopher awarded free books for good comments, and also we did a random drawing among the first 100 commenters. People to give comments. We handed out free ebooks, and we were able to deliver the ebooks within minutes of closing out the show, which is again just Christopher just right on it, and able to get that experience as close to live and in person as possible. So the good news here is that if you're listening to this and going, well, that sounds like fun, I wish I had been there, you can be there. We recorded it, and it's up on Facebook now. You can watch it on our Facebook page. Christopher is going to be polishing it up, and it'll be on our YouTube page forever. So you'll be able to catch it there. But we're also going to do another one this Saturday, also at 4 o'clock, with a whole new and different lineup of writers. This Saturday, we're going to have, who are we going to have? We're going to have David Weber and Eric Flint, so you probably won't hear much of me at all. I believe Chuck Gannon's going to be in at the beginning. Catherine Asaro is going to be there. Let's see. Will McCarthy's going to be there. Dr. Rob Hampton's going to be there. Bob Buettner's going to be there. Steve Miller of Lee and Miller fame is going to be there. We hope Sharon as well, but we'll see how that rolls along. So we've got a great lineup of authors for this one too. And this has been so much fun to do, and I think the authors really enjoyed it too, that I think we're going to make this a regular thing, and that even when we stop hunkering down and conventions start back up again and we actually see each other in person, I think we're still going to do this just to be able to reach the people who can't get to the conventions.
Last week we had Larry Correa was on, so that's a good thing to go back and watch. He was talking about his projects. We had Dave Butler and Tom Kratman and a bunch of writers. Trying to think of who else. T.C. McCarthy and
Christopher Smith, who did a book with Ringo and Casey Azell this January, Gunpowder and Embers. That was really good.
And Mike Massa, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we had a great lineup for the first episode. Oh, and Casey Azell, she's going to make it for episode 2. We think she had technical difficulties trying to log in at 4 a.m. from Japan. So we're giving her another shot.
Well, we had all of these guys, by the way, of course, been on the podcast, and we've had some nice interviews with every one of those. What were all right, so if you're listening to this on Friday when the podcast drops, that means Saturday, the day after, which will be April, 16, 17, 18th, at 4 p.m. Eastern is when the roadshow will begin live. And you can go to the Baen Facebook page to see this, right, and find this. We've logged it as an event. So if you say that you're going to the event or interested in the event, Facebook will send you a reminder at the time as well. So. And you see the writers' faces because the writers are doing it by virtual meeting software, and so you see everybody, right? It's not just verbal, which is really cool. Because some people are surprisingly different looking than they are sounding sometimes. Well, I think all of our writers are beautiful or handsome. But it's great to be able to see everybody's faces and also to see the different backgrounds that everybody chooses. We got to see a little bit of Chris Smith's new puppy in his background. That was cool. Tony Daniel was apparently on several different planets. I just kept up a snowstorm the whole time. I didn't change my virtual background until after, but I left it on snowstorm all during the show. I do see that you can now hire a llama to attend your company's professional meetings. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody appears as a llama. But that is not the only thing that we are doing. We also have a new Friday night. We are doing a new Friday Night Live readings, and so these are live readings again on Facebook, and authors are doing readings from upcoming manuscripts with Bain, and then they're doing a little Q&A afterwards. So it's live. You can interact with your favorite authors, and it's something to do Friday night when you can't go out to your, whatever it is that you usually did on Friday night. So, so we had Larry Correa, Dave Butler, Larry Correa, and Steve Barnes were the first 3 people who did readings for us. And we've got, I think we've got Christopher Rocchio is coming up next, and we've got other people lined up. And again, this is something that we're planning to do as long as the lockdown goes along. But if it's a popular thing, we'll try to continue it afterwards. This may be news to Christopher, but this is the price of success here. So it was his idea, and he's been hosting them and doing just a fantastic job. He's got 2 computers going, so he's monitoring the questions that the readers type in at the Facebook page, feeding them to the author, and also watching the author and interacting with him as well. So kudos to him. And that's Friday night, which will be the 17th. Will be the next one. So, and we're going to just continue doing this on Friday night. So that's something that can be scheduled listening and watching for folks. Tying into that too, we're doing a special discount program, and we did for this month, the month of April, tying into Steve Barnes's novel with Larry Niven and Jerry Pournelle, Starborn and Godsons. We're doing a 25% off of the ebook for Starborn and Godsons, and 50% off of the 2 books also preceding it in the series, Legacy of Hero and Beowulf's Children. So you can get the whole series with nice fat discounts as ebooks, and I will have to say they are really, really good books. If you like hard science fiction, you are going to love these books. Yeah. And I last podcast I did a big old news spiel on that as well. So the listeners should be well aware of this great knocking off and discounting of the price on these books. Just maybe we could. By the way, I also want to remind everybody that the podcast continues, and these reading tips that I've been dropping. I dropped a bunch last week, and I'm going to continue to do maybe one or two a week now. And just and really, part of the reason is, first of all, it's because I've been at Bain forever, not as long as Toni, but I know a lot of stuff about like where some little tricky discounts are, like what you can get free on the free library and stuff, and where there are omnibus editions that are a little bit cheaper than buying all three books if you might want to just take a whole series on. Things like that. That's what I'm doing with the reader tips as well, and we're continuing with that. And speaking of ebooks and our discount of Starborn and Godsons and the Hero series, what are you thinking about? What's the state of books right now, and what's the state of Baen within publishing? How's it look out there? I mean, our audience is readers who, this is a big part of their life is reading.
For sure. Well, I think publishing, along with the rest of the economy, is taking a deep breath and holding it. We're waiting to see how the economy is going to emerge out of the last few months. We are seeing some changes in print publishing, in particular. One of the big book printers was in bankruptcy protection before this, or was going into bankruptcy protection before this, and now is in bankruptcy protection, and that's going to affect all of the traditional, the big five publishers, because all of them use this printer. And the reason they all use this one printer is because it didn't used to be one printer. It used to be several printers, and now it's one printer. So that's going to be interesting in terms of scheduling books. We are seeing bookstores, as in with all retail that are not quote-unquote essential, how they're going to emerge out of this is going to be interesting. So I think print publishing is. I don't think anybody knows how print publishing is going to come out of this. Baen is uniquely positioned to be able to survive all of this because we do ebooks. We've been doing ebooks without DRM since 1999, and a large portion of what we do and our core audience buy ebooks. They buy the ebooks, they buy the e-arcs, and these are great ways to support the authors. And we have not changed what we do one single bit, other than to add these new programs in the selling of ebooks. So we, as a company, have not been hit, luckily, with any injuries from COVID-19, the Wu flu, whatever you choose to call it. Our people are all healthy. They're all producing. All of our authors are fine. All of our artists are fine. Everybody's doing good and doing what we always do. The artists are making paintings. The authors are writing books. The editors are editing. The designers are designing. Everybody's doing their job. So we don't see any slowdown in the pipeline. We don't see any change in the pipeline. We don't see any changes in the schedule. Everything should, from the reader's end, be just exactly as they expect it to be.
Ebooks are sometimes a little bit, for those that love print books, sometimes it's a tough sell, the people that have hung on to their love of print books. But you read ebooks sometimes, right, Toni?
Not really. No, I am one of those dinosaurs that I like the feel of the print book. I like the experience of reading a print book. I like holding a book in my hand, and I am one who has clung to that. Now I'm not. I treat my books as tools, right? They're the means for the story to be delivered to me. I don't worship the books, and I treat them badly, and I dog-ear the pages and all like that. And I don't particularly care whether it's a hardcover or a trade paperback or a mass market. It's most of the time that's I just want to have the book in my hand. I don't find reading ebooks to be the same experience or listening to audiobooks, but I am perfectly happy to sell you the audiobook or the or the ebook if that is the way that you get your story on. I am completely good with that. I don't think that the way that I do it has to be the way that you do it. So I think for the print book people, we're still planning on doing print books. That isn't changing. Where you get your print books from, that may change. We just don't know which bookstores are going to survive. We don't know which retail outlets are going to still be there in a few months. Hopefully all of them. Hopefully everybody makes it through. That would be awesome. That's my vote.
Well, I mean, I love ebooks, and I often will read ebooks, and I'm a big audiobook fan as well. I feel like there is a chance for those that are stuck on one particular format to try something different just for the heck of it and see if you like it even. I'm not asking you to do that, Toni, because you're the dinosaur of dinosaurs, of course.
As you know how stubborn I am, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you ever thought, hell, man, maybe I'll just try that Weber in an ebook, this might be the time to do it, right? I mean,
it absolutely might be, for sure. Just remember, you can't use your ebook for toilet paper if things get really, really scary. So,
or to start fires.
Right, and you can't do that with Baen Books either. But other publishers' books, that's fine.
That is fine. That's right. How do you think, as a fan and a super fan, how do you think this is going to play out with science fiction fandom? It's got to be. I mean, all these conventions have been canceled. It's a bummer.
It really is, and I think it's going to make people very sad. We are losing conventions. There was a convention in Louisville, Conglomeration, that this year was going to be their last year. So when they couldn't do it this year, there is no next year for them. There are other conventions for whom last year will be the last year, that they just don't have the institutional vitality to be able to go without a year, and that is sad. I think part of fandom is getting together. Now, back in the old days, the way that we were, and I'm not talking the old days, 1920s, 1930s. Before we had conventions, we got together through social media, right? The social media of the day was magazine, letter columns, and fanzines, and writing to each other, and that sort of thing. So in a way, we're kind of getting back to that. But part of fandom is the social aspect, is just getting together in great numbers and being fans together. And I don't think that's going to change. I think we're going to have that. What I personally would like to see is the spring and summer conventions that are being affected by this doubling up with fall conventions in their area, so that we can keep the experiences going. But that can be tricky to work out. So. My only consolation, and that's an interesting word, is because there's a huge online conference on Facebook, over 30,000 people, I think now, called Consolation, that started out as a joke, as so many Finnish things do, and has grown like Topsy. It's got a dealer's room and an art show and merchandise and all the sorts of things. It has charity drives and all the sorts of things that you would want in a from a convention. People are hanging out over there and doing the best they can to have their convention experience there. But if that's a little too big for you, then you should try Give Me Libertycon, which is like a convention in a book, including con reports and fan history and charity auction, the whole 9 yards. It is centered on one actual real-world convention called LibertyCon that's here in my hometown, Chattanooga. And it's in memory of LibertyCon's founder, Timothy Bolgeo, who was an engineer at TVA and big-name fan, and just an all-around great guy. And you will learn more about him throughout reading Give Me LibertyCon. The other things that you will get with Give Me LibertyCon are some really, really great stories. We got a bunch of authors contributing stories, including David Weber, who's it wasn't his original idea, but he certainly ran with the idea and made it happen. He's got a new Honorverse story in Give Me LibertyCon, and it's a really, really good one. If you read David Weber, because David makes you cry, this one will make you cry, and that makes me happy. So.
I mean, the thing about LibertyCon is there's a lot of Baen writers that go to LibertyCon, and it's been canceled this year, which is a bummer. And so this is sort of, it's not the ghost of LibertyCon. It's like it's still happening in a way. And these writers, they know they knew Tim, and they know this convention, and they wanted to do their best work, right? And especially since the publisher was editing it. So that Weber's this is not thrown off stories. This is good stuff in this anthology.
It is, and if you like Larry Correia audiobooks, there's a new Tom Stranger non-audio story in this volume. When David Drake has a little fairy tale for you, as only David Drake can tell fairy tales. There's some really great stuff. Christopher Woods, it was his idea. He's a newer writer, newer to the field, and he came to LibertyCon and went, I have found my people. Really enjoyed the con, loved the welcome that Timmy and his family and his convention family gave to Christopher, and he wanted to pay it forward. And he thought, well, let me do an anthology that Tuckerizes, that redshirts all of the volunteers in LibertyCon. Now, LibertyCon is not a big convention as conventions go, but it is run on volunteers. So there were over 100 people who signed up to be Tuckerized in this book. And by God, Christopher got everybody in, sometimes more than once. So we have over 100 people who are real people who are mentioned in the stories in this book, and it's kind of fun looking for those as well. And Christopher himself has a story in this in his Fallen World anthology, and it's a very, very strong story too. So pleased to have that. Chris Kennedy has a story in there as well. Chris Woods writes for Chris Kennedy, and vice versa, over at Chris Kennedy Publishing. And we'll mention that we sell some of their ebooks too, so you can get their ebooks at Baen.com.
Yeah, that's right. And you can. We should perhaps bring it up since we do it at the roadshows too, which is that at the Baen retail site, that our selling of ebooks, we also distribute third-party other publishers. Really great stuff. People that we have, pretty strong relationships, like Chris Kennedy Books and Kevin J. Anderson's press, which is called what again? It suddenly slipped from my mind. Wordfire. Yes, okay.
It is Kevin J. Anderson's Wordfire Press. Yes.
And we just have a lot of other publishers that sell through our site, so you can find a book, which is just at Baen.com. That's how you get there. Most of y'all will know that are listening.
We should mention too that some of our writers who do some self-published work, like Sharon Lee and Steve Miller, they will also sell that work through Baen.com. We distribute it, and we've got a new one coming up from Sharon Lee and Steve Miller in their Splinter Universe series. So.
Yeah, and all the Ring of Fire books are there, and Larry Correa's his gaming novels, which many people might not know about, are there.
Mm-hmm. Those are fun.
At the roadshow, we were generally what we do is we talk about the future books that are coming. What were some of the highlights, do you think, of the virtual roadshow, and what will they be? What can people look forward to?
Well, I'm really excited this season about the Jerry Parnell program that we've got going. We got to publish Jerry's last collaborative novel with Steve Barnes and Larry Niven, but we're also getting to publish his last solo novel. This is the long-awaited Janissaries, the culmination of that series. It's a book called Mamalukes, and Jerry had been working on it for a long, long time. Had a brain tumor, recovered from the brain tumor, wrote a almost final draft, and then unfortunately passed away. We got the almost final draft. It was really, really good, and it was just missing two parts. It was missing the final battle sequence, and it was missing the denouement, where everything gets wrapped up. It was very clear exactly how Jerry wanted it to go. It was clear what he wanted to do with it. Jerry had long conversations with his son, Commander Philip Pornell of the U.S. Navy, how he wanted that final naval battle to go, and he had left us notes on the themes that he wanted brought out in the final part, and it wasn't a complete novel without these things. So we asked David Weber to work with Phil and give us these last parts, and that's exactly what they did. They took Jerry's draft and they turned it into a final draft. So I think it's going to be very satisfying for Jerry's fans, and I'm just pleased as punch to be able to bring it to you guys. It's a really good work of military science fiction. I'm very, very proud to have it out there. And that one is coming in, June, July?
June.
It is June. Yeah, it's a June title. So, yeah. We've got a string of really good hard science fiction stuff coming up, too. In July, we've got Battle Luna by Travis Taylor, Tim Zahn, Mike Williamson, Casey Ezel, and Josh Hayes, which is a shared universe about the battle for independence in the near future, set on the moon. Very, very excited about that. Really strong. We've got The 11th Gate just coming out from Nancy Kress. Great adventure science fiction. Very, very thoughtful science fiction. Love. Just so much fun to read. I mean, I could go on and on about this, but we've got a whole string of really, really strong books that I'm just delighted to be able to present to you guys.
Probably talk about the Valkyrie Protocol on Saturday, which is a new Weber out in fall. That'll be cool. And is there a Larry book in the fall? I'm trying to remember if there's a Korea.
Yes, we have Destroyer of Worlds is coming out.
Right, of course. Yeah. Which is the third book in the Bain trilogy of.
So probably 5 or 6 books. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. But it's a big one, and Larry's really proud of it and happy with it. So that'll be cool. That'll be September.
Yeah, if you want the sneak preview of that, that's what Larry was reading from in his Friday Night Live session.
And a new Liaden book in December with Trader's Leap. So some really cool stuff that we talked about there.
Also great. We've got a new to Baen author coming out in September, Night Watch by Tim Akers, and a fun original anthology, Weird World War III, edited by Captain Sean Patrick Hazlitt of Our Army. We've got Serpent Daughter coming from DJ Butler, Agent of the Imperium, which is neat, and we'll talk more about that one when it comes up. But it's the third edition of a traveler novel by Mark Miller, so that's exciting. Oh, and Founder Effect by Rob Hampson and his sister Sandra Medlock. Thank you, dog. The dog's very excited about this too. So, the founder effect is what I'm reading right now, as a matter of fact. And again, part of this really strong string of hard SF that we've got going on. It deals with what it takes to actually settle the first planet outside of our solar system. So that one's a lot of fun.
Since I have you on, and you are the art director at Baen, talk a little bit about working with. We talked. We had a big old long interview with Carol Russo about a month ago, and she was talked a lot about how it all comes together and everything. And she kept talking about the artist and this and that, but the art comes to her. How do you make the art happen?
Well, talking about how long I've been at Baen, Carol's been at Baen longer than I have. And some of the artists that we work with have been at Baen longer than I have, because they started working with Jim when Jim was at Ace. So not even at Tor, at Ace. And that's when Carol started working with Jim. So these relationships go way, way back. I'm talking about Tom Kidd. I'm talking about David Mattingly, who did the first ever cell piece for Baen Books, a Paul Anderson cover. I'm talking about Steve Hickman. I'm talking about Bob Eggleton. These guys have been working with us for a long, long time, and they just keep getting better and better. So, in a sense, my job as art director is very easy. Is that I take a look at the book and I figure out what would be the best feel for the book, and then I assign the art on that basis. Because I am the art director and the publisher and the person who signs the checks all in one, I have a little more freedom to choose the best art than a lot of other publishing companies do, because I don't have to necessarily say, well, this won't fit my budget. I can go ahead and look at the bigger picture, and I can say, well, this artist is going to be the best for this book. So I can have Tom Kidd do the artwork for Overruled, which is a reprint anthology edited by Christopher Rocchio and Hank Davis in-house. And it was a fantastic cover, and in fact, it so inspired Tom that he wrote a story for it. So first he did the cover, then he wrote the story. Usually it's the other way around, but in this case we got to do it that way.
We did interview him last week, and he told us the whole tale of that, and Tom likes to talk about his art.
So in general, we'll have a manuscript in from the author. I will assign it to an artist, and that artist will give me a series of sketches. Depending on the artist, it'll be 6 or 7, or it could be 1 or 2, or it can just be, sometimes Bob Eggleton will send me one sketch, and I'll go, yeah, Bob, that looks fantastic, do that. And that's how we go.
I mean, a lot of publishers just they couldn't afford Eggleton, but not just that they couldn't afford him, he just won't work with them because he doesn't need to, but he works with us. Yeah.
I am the art director, but I try to be as minimally invasive as possible in my art direction. I mean, most of my art direction is picking the artist. And then sometimes I will get nitpicky about elements, especially about swords and weapons. I have to admit that's something that will press my buttons, and I will try to make sure that those are as accurate as possible. But most of the time, I pick the artists because I want their vision. I want their input into how these things look. I don't want to be prescriptive about it. I want their interpretation, because they're brilliant artists, and that's why we're paying them to do this. To give us these visuals. I don't want somebody to give me my vision. I want their vision, because their vision is going to be so much better than my vision. Yeah, we have a great bunch of people who do our covers. Kurt Miller and Dominic Harmon, and just recently Melissa Gay has done some nice covers for us. And Adam Byrne in England is also doing some cool covers. Todd Lockwood does some covers for us. And who am I missing? Dan Dos Santos. Yeah. Sam Kennedy is another younger artist who's been doing some great work for us as well. I'm just really happy to be working with these people.
You bring in new talent as well. The old guys keep getting work, and the old girls, but new talent keeps coming in too. Yeah,
for sure.
Alan Pollock is another we might mention.
Yeah, he's the artist for the Monster Hunter International series. Just fantastic interpretations there, and
you brought up David Mattingly, who of course does and Dave Seeley is one.
Dave Seeley, yeah.
But there's so many. We've interviewed a bunch of these guys, by the way, and there's plenty of there's some really nice stuff they've talked about their art and working with Toni on the podcast.
I was just going to say that's one of the things that I miss about going to conventions is seeing the art shows, seeing the art in person, and that's one of the things that I do when I go to conventions is I do look for new talent. So.
You should just shove your portfolio right under Toni's nose, right? That's the way.
That is not the way to do it.
And then hand her a manuscript while you're at it. So.
Right. Actually, Toni Daniel is the one you want to corner for these. No, we are kidding.
I'll pick the art.
I'll say, you have to give that to Toni. I'm sorry. Yeah. So yes, we're kidding. We've many times talked about the wonderful submission process we have at Baen. We do, of course, always take unsolicited submissions via the website, and we have the most excellent Gray Reinhardt looking over those.
And we do look at portfolios online as well. There is an art submission policy that we have there too, so you can look that up. And I will look at online portfolios. So.
Just looking forward into your crystal ball, what do you see as for the future of Baen kind of question? I don't know how else to ask it.
Well, the mid to long term is always fuzzy, but there are no plans to change anything that we do. We roll along and we do what we do. We have our niche. I think we fill it very well. I'm very pleased with the stories that we're getting in and the artwork that we're getting in, and the level of reader interaction that we're getting is always good. So I'm not seeing any indications that we need to change direction. There are ways that we'd like to be able to get to more readers, and one of those things is we just signed a deal a few months ago with Overdrive, which is the library jobber for ebooks. And if you get your ebooks mostly from libraries, you can start requesting Baen Books, and they should be able to get them to you. So that's one thing that we've been working on. So just continuing to explore ways to get stories to readers is what I see for the near term, and I don't see that changing in the long term either.
Anything else that we want to mention or bring up?
Well, I think we hit the high points. We are trying to reach out on our social media and to make contact with everybody while we're sheltering in place, and give people good entertainment while they're there and something to think about while they're there. And we don't see us changing that. If you have suggestions for other things that we'd like to do, you'd like to see us do, we want to hear them. Come to my table on Baen's Bar, or send us a suggestion by Facebook or email us. Send us a letter. We're still picking up the mail. We want to hear from you guys.
Well, reading is going on. Baen is moving forward. Want to thank Baen Publisher Toni Weisskopf for talking with us today. Thanks so much, Toni.
Oh, thanks for having me, Tony D.
Here is another entry in David Weber's Honor Harrington series masterpiece, Uncompromising Honor. Honor keeps her promise. The Solarian League. For hundreds of years they have borne the banner of human civilization, but the bureaucratic mandarins who rule today's League are corrupt and looking for scapegoats. They've decided the upstart Star Kingdom of Manticore must be annihilated. Uncompromising courage. Honor Harrington has worn the Star Kingdom's uniform for half a century. Very few know war the way Honor Harrington does. So far, hers has been a voice of caution. But now the Mandarins have committed atrocities such as the galaxy has not known in 1,000 years. They have finally killed too many of the people Honor Harrington loves. Uncompromising vengeance. Now Honor Harrington is coming for the Solarian League, and hell is riding in her wake. And now, David Weber's Uncompromising Honor.
SLNS Leonhard Euler, Unicorn Belt, Manticore B, Star Empire of Manticore. Sir, I think I've got something here you need to look at, Midshipman Demas said. That would make a nice change. Commander Bill Knight sounded more than a little sour, although that was scarcely Demas's fault. In fact, Knight liked Demas quite a bit, more than an evaluating officer was supposed to admit to a midshipman on his snotty cruise. Demas was smart and competent, and so bouncy he reminded Knight irresistibly of a Labrador retriever he'd had when he was a kid himself. That dog had been smart too, and despite what some people might think was possible, he definitely had a sense of humor. One that had gotten both him and his youthful master into what his mom had always referred to as a heap of trouble more than once. Demas's humor never got him into trouble, or not at least with his superiors. His fellow snotties might have disputed that value judgment, but he loved practical jokes, and he was an accomplished amateur ventriloquist. His ability to mimic sounds and throw his voice into unlikely places had kept Midshipman Styles running around the compartment looking for his lost Unilink for almost 15 minutes a couple of days ago. Young Demas had also won the Lester Allen Kovalenko Prize as the top math graduate in his senior class, however. He'd been the starting goalie on the Saganami lacrosse team during his junior and senior forms as well, and he took the team's motto, "Live life fearlessly," to heart. In short, he was an outstanding young man who was going to be an outstanding officer. None of which made Bill Knight any happier about their current duty. There were a lot of things he'd rather be doing than sitting on the command deck of yet another Halt-Solly super dreadnought. Unfortunately, he wouldn't be doing any of them for the immediately foreseeable future. He grimaced at the thought and shoved up out of the captain's chair at the center of Leonhard Euler's bridge. He wasn't certain who Euler had been. A mathematician, he thought, but his namesake had seen better days. Less damage than a lot of her consorts, she'd still suffered over 400 casualties, and lucky it hadn't been worse. Not that anyone looking around her pristine bridge and smelling its cool, fresh air would have imagined how severely damaged she was. He crossed to the communications officer station where Demas was ensconced. Knight had been forced to concede that young Demas had a better touch with Solly computers than he did. He hoped that didn't say anything about unfortunate hidden character flaws on the young man's part. But what had started with Demas riding shotgun, shadowing the older and more experienced Knight while he learned his way around, had segued into something a lot more like a partnership, and the boy had more than held up his end. Along the way, they discovered that the comm system actually had the best reach into the ship's computer net, although no one was quite certain why the comm officer had needed more access than, say, the tactical officer or the astrogator. Probably because there's a right way, a wrong way, and the Solly way to do just about anything, he reflected as he came to a halt at Demas's shoulder. Although, come to think of it, wrong way and Solly way is probably redundant. So, what have you got, Elijah? He asked. I've got the standalones running the deep core analysis, sir, the middy said, looking back and up at him, and Knight nodded. The reason he and Demas were currently parked aboard Leonhard Euler was that, for their sins, they were among the better of the Royal Manticoran Navy's cyberneticists. In fact, both of them had been assigned to HMSS Wayland prior to the Yawata strike. Knight had been aboard the space station for almost 2 years before the strike, assigned to the R&D side of its complement because of his expertise. Demas had been sent aboard for his snotty cruise deployment to give him the hands-on, real-world experience his academy instructors had been unable to provide, and he'd ended up under Knight's mentorship. They were alive today only because Vice Admiral Faraday, Wayland's CO, had called an emergency evacuation drill which had left the entire R&D staff planetside when the deadly sneak attack tore the space station apart. Technically, Demas's snotty cruise had ended 5 days ago, but things were still badly unsettled following what had been dubbed the Second Battle of Manticore. The lad had been left where he was, assigned to Knight's team, for the forensic examination of the wreckage. The commander hadn't told him he'd specifically asked to be allowed to keep his midshipman a little longer because he was so good at his job, nor did young Elijah know about the glowing efficiency report Knight had already composed. But the same gift for computers, and especially for deep diving into the cyber depths which had made Demas so useful aboard Wayland, made him even more valuable aboard a hulk like Euler. One of the conditions upon which Massimo Filaretta's survivors had been allowed to surrender had been the preservation of their computer cores. Several commanding officers had scrubbed their computers anyway, which was why those particular COs were spending their current confinement in somewhat less than palatial conditions. Most, however, had honored their promise. A lot of them had figured, quite reasonably in Knight's opinion, that after what the RMN had done to Sandra Crandall, it already had plenty of classified computer banks to play with. There were unlikely to be any shattering new intelligence landfalls in 11th Fleet's memory. At the moment, Knight and Demas were busy probing the memory of their 12th Super Dreadnought, and they weren't the only team involved in the effort. And so far, no shattering new intelligence had come to light, which tended to suggest those captains had had a point. Demas's standalones were designed to carry out a point-by-point comparison between Leonhard Euler's memory and the computers they'd already stripped. There was far too much data for any mere human to sort through, and in theory at least, the standalones would make sure anything that wasn't already in the database was added. The communications logs were another matter, however. Computers did a wonderful job of searching for things they were told to look for, and they were doing just that with all of the comm traffic. But in something that tended to be as freeform as interhuman communication, telling them where to look could sometimes be a non-trivial challenge. That was why he and Demas had made it a point to at least skim the traffic for the last couple of hours before the Solarian surrender. The computers were looking at the same time frame, but it was entirely possible they'd missed something. "Should I take it the standalones have found something earth-shattering?" Knight asked now with a smile. "Actually, sir," the MIDI said seriously, "I think I really may have found something." "Like what?" "A fragment of a comm conversation between Leonhard Euler and Philip Oppenheimer from about the time the Sollies opened fire, from her flag bridge." Knight's eyebrows rose and Demas nodded. "You're kidding," the commander said. "No, sir." Demas shook his head and Knight's eyes widened. They'd been searching for some window into whatever insanity had led Filaretta to open fire in an absolutely hopeless situation. Unfortunately, none of 11th Fleet's surviving units had been in direct communication with Admiral Filaretta or his staff at the critical moment, and Philip Oppenheimer herself was not among the survivors. They'd found a few megs of recorded comm traffic between Oppenheimer's CO and other units of the fleet from that time window, but nothing that came from her flag bridge or that shed any light on his decisions. So if his MIDI... "Somebody on this ship was actually in communication with Filaretta when everything went to hell?" he demanded. "Not quite, sir," Demas shrugged. "What I've got here is part of a conversation between Leonhard Euler's comm officer and one of her cousins, Captain Sedgwick." Knight's eyes narrowed. Captain Reuben Sedgwick had been Filaretta's staff comm officer. "It's from the comm officer's private files, not part of the official logs," Demas continued. "Maybe that's because there wasn't time to worry about anything like that before everything hit the fan. Or it might be because they were violating regs tying up bandwidth on personal matters at a moment like that." "I could see that." Knight nodded, trying to imagine what would have happened to a Manticoran communications officer who'd been gabbing away with her cousin at a moment like that. It's not quite as bad as you may be thinking, sir, Dima said. They weren't on any of the active command net channels. They were talking on one of the redundancy sidebands. Marginally better, I suppose, Knight allowed grudgingly. But if this wasn't part of the official fleet traffic, why do you think anyone's going to want to see it? Well, I sort of doubt that Captain Clarence, she was Leonhard Euler's comm officer, has any idea there was anything significant in what she had here, sir. For that matter, I'm not even certain she realized she'd recorded it in the first place. If she did, though, I can see why she'd kept her mouth shut since we started beating the bushes trying to figure out why Philaretta opened fire. What are you talking about? Knight demanded a bit more impatiently, and Demas gave him a crooked smile. Let me show you, sir, he said, and hit the playback button.
That was another entry in the complete audiobook serialization of Uncompromising Honor by David Weber. And that's it for the podcast. Thanks to Audible.com and to podcast theme composer Ruth Jedkowitz. And a red and gold satellite done up with the Baen logo to hang overhead during reading hours and illuminate her manuscripts with a soft glow of goodness. Plus many thanks for her words of reading happiness for Toni Weisskopf, Baen Publisher, and editor of upcoming anthology Give Me Libertycon. Please join us next time here at the hammering heart of science fiction and fantasy, and keep reaching for the stars.